We're talking today about, how to find your way out if you are trapped in debt. Linda, good afternoon to you.
Yes, hi Quentin. Lovely to be back with you again.
Awesome stuff. Well, let's get straight into it. Debt is one of those things, unfortunately, that many people find themselves in, especially this time of the day. But you know what? We are at the start of a brand new year. We've got a theme here at the radio station, starting fresh, new, and clean, a good new start. How can we go about doing that in the area of debt?
Well, what I always like to suggest to my clients, when they're struggling with debt, is to really step towards it. And what I mean by that is to really own it and embrace it, and to try to not feel so overwhelmed by it. Very often people feel stressed, they feel worried, they may be making payments towards their debt and then don't feel that they've got enough left to live on. And so what I like to suggest from a practical point of view for your listeners, if they haven't already done this, is to, especially as we're going into the new year now, is to take out a sheet and actually list out their debts. Who do they owe, how much, what is the monthly repayments. And in fact, there's in my 2013 Abundance Diary, there's actually a template to do this, and I actually call it the Debt Freedom Plan, where you get it all down on paper and you start to see what the numbers are, and you can even calculate over time by when those debts will be paid off. And sometimes when you've got all those facts on paper in front of you, it doesn't seem so overwhelming as when it's just in your head and all you're thinking about is the stress of more debt to pay. And by having it on paper like that, one then can start to predict, as I say, when it will be paid off, as well as even if you can maybe pay even another 50 Rand or 100 Rand on the smallest debts. And in that way, just start to speed up the payments of that debt. And ultimately with having a goal to pay off the debt as soon as possible. So, to answer your question today, stepping into and understanding exactly where you stand with your debt, because these debts and these amounts of money that we owe, it's numbers at the end of the day.
Sure.
And by getting these numbers on paper, allows a person to really get truly in touch with what's going on and then make a plan. And once you've got a plan and you take the action on that plan, well, things start to feel a lot better, and you actually start to feel even a sense of achievement. So debt doesn't have to be such a negative thing. It actually can give you a positive experience in the end.
I can well imagine there must be a few keys that one needs to apply in one's life, especially if you find yourself in debt at the moment. I can imagine one of those being avoid getting new debt, like taking out new loans or getting new credit.
Absolutely. And another tip I'd like to share is what I call going on the cash diet. So what that means is setting up your week with a certain amount of cash, and that's the money that you've got available for those expenses that will occur in that week. And to really honor that and stick with stick with the cash diet, because when the money's gone and you look in your wallet and it's gone, it's a very big reality check. There's no sort of credit card to just, let me just get this as well. Again, it helps to plan and contain and really stick to what your budget allows, rather than going over budget, which ultimately leads to just increasing that debt. So at the very least, what I'd like to suggest for some of your listeners perhaps is to make a commitment just for the next week even, not to buy anything on credit. That might be hard, but it's one of those things that one has to look at saying, well, I could do that, just for this week, I could put myself on a cash diet, because it's amazing how empowering that action actually it turns out to be.
Interesting. I can also imagine that one of the ways, obviously, to try and get out of debt or avoid new debt is to curb one's spending and cut down on, like you rightfully say, cut down on unnecessary expenses and try, like the example you made, for a week not to buy anything on credit, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And by giving yourself just even a week in which to try it out, it starts with just those baby steps sometimes, But in taking those baby steps, they grow to bigger steps. And by, going back to just cash and buying what you can afford, yes, it might mean you're not getting certain things, but if somebody, who's listening to this here today is really, truly committed to, getting out of debt and building savings, sometimes one has to take some really radical steps. Even though I say radical steps, these are still also baby steps. They're not, they're not too overwhelming that one can't say, you know what, let me set up a cash diet and see how that works for me.
If one finds yourself in financial crisis, Linda, and your debt is really getting out of control, what is the first action one should take?
Well, another action one should definitely take is then to start making sure that those cards don't stay in your wallet anymore. What I mean by that is leaving the cards at home or giving the cards to somebody else to look after, somebody that you trust.
Or like me, cut them up during December, hey?
Yes, that's what people actually also do, actually cut up the cards.
Yep.
Because, by cutting them up or taking them out of your wallet, it just removes that opportunity for temptation. Because when you're in the mall or you're in the shops and you're seeing something that you feel you need or you want to get, it's easy to whip out the card. And we've been so conditioned to do that it just comes so easily. And one can kind of say, oh, well, I'll worry about that later. And that's all fine until, the bill comes and then another bill comes and then you get maybe behind on other expenses. And it starts to become a very stressful predicament to be in. And then the question is, is it truly worth it? And I've found that, clients who've put themselves on the cash diet, for example, they've reported that it's been so empowering. They've actually felt better by being able to limit themselves. Like you go to the shop and you've got a certain amount of cash, you have to stick with that cash budget. You can't, you can't spend more. And so it's sometimes going back to the good old-fashioned cash that allows a person not only to, stick to the budget, but also to get in touch with, what they're doing with their money. So it's got multiple benefits. That's what I'm also saying here. But one has to try it to actually experience that.
One of the other very popular means I see nowadays, especially being advertised on social networks, is seeking a no obligation free counselling for debt relief from a debt relief company. How do you feel? How do you feel about that?
Well, I know there are a number of debt counselling companies out there, and look, the benefit is that you get help with it.
Yeah.
So if somebody feels that that's the way to go, that is an option. I do know that, as you say, initially there might be no cost, but there are costs involved later on. So for a person who wants to try and do it themselves, that's one choice. But if a person feels that they just need that extra support and maybe management around it, then the debt counselling option is certainly another route to go. It depends on the sort of how much debt there is and how extreme the finances are being impacted by the monthly debt payments.
I think you've given us quite a number of hints at least. Of course, in terms of how to get out of debt, of course, you said avoid new debts, curb your spending was the one. And you mentioned something very interesting. I think it was early in the year we spoke about increasing our earnings. And how do we do that? Perhaps by getting a second job, a part-time job. I love that. And you also mentioned that starting up a small business,
Absolutely. We've all got the capacity to, expand what we're currently doing and, or even go after this thing that you really are passionate about doing, even if it's on a part-time basis, and to start to see how one can turn it into an additional income.
Right.
And one has to have patience because, it doesn't mean these things happen necessarily immediately, but it's amazing what can come about if one is committed to, expanding income and exploring other opportunities. But what I also always caution people about is that, as the income increases, one must focus on either increasing the debt repayments to get out of debt or increasing the savings, and not just let all that money get spent. Because if you increase your income, but you just spend all that money at the end of the month, you actually are not really much better off. Because all that's happened is you've increased your expenses. Maybe your lifestyle is slightly different, but the ultimate goal of getting out of debt and building savings and building assets, which is really the goal, and even income-generating assets, that won't be achieved if the increased income is spent as quickly as it's coming in.
Linda Stein, financial abundance coach. Before you go, you have a diary that's available in most retailers. Talk to me about what exactly it is and what the purpose thereof is.
Yes, well, it's a day-to-day diary, so it runs through the next 12 months, and between each month, there's a financial section, and each financial section focuses on a different area around finances. So, for example, like right now in January, it's really about setting a focus for one's goals and one's aims and what one wants to achieve for the year ahead. Other months will focus on saving, debt. There's even something called the abundance game, which is it's a virtual shopping spree, which is something quite fun to play. It doesn't get you into debt, so it's it's lots of fun. And it also provides templates, the spending plan templates, recording their day-to-day spending. There's also goal-setting charts, as well as saving charts. And one of the things that I like personally the best is on each day page, there's a little section to record the things that you're grateful for. And I really believe that's very important as well, to really focus on the things that we are grateful for in our lives. I think we've all got a lot to be grateful for. And again, by focusing on the things that we are grateful for, you're going to have a much more positive experience of your life, rather than focusing on the things that are not going so well, perhaps like debt or something. So it's one place for people to track both their finances, their goals for their finances, their life, and yes, they're available at the CNA and so on.
Right, fantastic. And it's called?
It's called Linda's Abundance Diary.
Awesome stuff. Linda Stein, I thank you so very kindly for the insights. I look forward to chatting to you again on Thursday afternoon, just helping us work this whole financial thing and managing our finances to a level where we become, not complacent, but become masters in managing our finances, and of course, giving us some tips on how to get out of debt. I really do appreciate your time.
My pleasure. And I wanted to say, people can do it. They just need to give themselves the time and perhaps the support sometimes, and that's where the diary comes in, to support a person in their journey.
And soos die Afrikaanse man sal sê aanhouer wen. I'm not sure if she understands that. It simply means, if you keep trying, keep persevering, you'll make it.
Never give up.
Never give up.
Never give up.
There you go. Linda, have a good one. Thank you for your time once again.